Hello, I'm Sarah Picorni of Aviation Specialties Unlimited, and I'd like to welcome our listeners to this episode of the ASU Aviation Conversations audio series. In this series, we speak with pilots, maintainers, and industry experts to better understand nighttime aerial operations and to demystify the use of night vision imaging systems in aviation operations. In this regular audio series, we'll share real-world examples of successful night vision programs, also known as NVG, and discuss tips, resources, best practices, technology advancements, and actionable solutions to help operators and maintainers ensure mission readiness while sustaining safe and effective NVG programs. We'll also debunk myths and common misconceptions related to night vision to promote a common understanding of this life-saving technology. And I'd like to welcome our guest to the show today. It's Chris Reber, ASU Part 145 Repair Station Manager. We're going to be talking today about NVIS, or Night Vision Imaging System Conformity. So Chris is an Idaho native, and ASU is located here in beautiful Boise, Idaho. And he's also airframe and power plant mechanic with an inspection authorization. And he's been with the ASU team for 11 years and performed more than 200 NVIS lighting STC installations and lighting surveys. He's worked on a wide range of fixed wing and rotor wing aircraft, and we're really happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Good. Thanks for having me. It's almost 11 years, so I'm almost there.
Nearly. We're glad to have you on the team.
Awesome. Thanks. Yep, I'm glad to be here. So I do look forward to sharing some information about aircraft conformity inspections. The things I share should hopefully help you be able to perform a conformity inspection, know when and why, and how important they are. So also, one additional thing here is right up front, I want to be able to give you guys a chance to write down my direct line or my office line. So if you have a pen and paper handy, I'll give you a little second here to grab it. I'm talking slow. So my direct line is 208-287-5393. So I just want to put the invite out. If you have any questions in the future or right after this podcast, whatever it is, just give me a call and I'll help you out. So.
Well, thanks for being such a great resource for us. Much appreciated.
Cool.
So let's jump into it. Who really needs to worry about NVIS aircraft conformity?
So who needs to worry about an NVIS conformity? Everyone who has an STC or an NVIS lighting STC would be needing to know how to perform a conformity inspection. So it doesn't matter if you're in Part 91, Part 135, or whatever operation that you're operating under. It's very important to ensure that your system is working as it should. So.
Very good. So what is an NVIS aircraft conformity? What does that mean?
So an NVIS conformity inspection is ensuring that your NVIS lighting system is operating correctly and matches all of your STC documentation, most specifically the STC drawings. So there's going to be, there's another term for those, it's the ICA appendix drawings, and ICA standing for Instructions for Continued Airworthiness. It's essentially the maintenance manual portion of the STC that is associated with NVIS lighting. So again, it's basically ensures that your drawings. It's a way to ensure that your drawings are matching the aircraft. So.
Awesome. So why do we, as operators, need to perform an inspection? What's the reason behind this inspection? Good
question. There's two main reasons here. Number one is flight safety. Number two is regulatory compliance, but let's get into flight safety. So as the NVIS lighting system is an added safety aspect to the aircraft, it enables you to fly at night. It's very important to, of course, ensure that everything that's called out on the drawings for each specific piece of equipment or lighting component is modified and modified correctly, not damaged or not, in-op in any way. So very important for flight safety. The reason that is so important for flight safety is, to ensure that the, goggles are able to be used for their intended use, and you're able to, the pilot is able to see outside of the aircraft, see any, terrain that they need to see, and then of course, able to fly even as far as daylight readability is very important to ensure that the system is working like it's supposed to be. So that all gets right down into the parts that are installed and ensuring that they are installed and they're the right equipment that's called out on the drawings themselves. So right down to makes and models of equipment, etc.
And from a regulatory compliance standpoint,
so
that a little bit?
Regulatory requirements. Yeah, thanks for reminding me there. So, as far as regulatory compliance goes, if you're an operator that's flying, say, Part 135, you're required to at least inspect your system at an annual basis. So this has to do with the ICA appendix, STC ICAs. So as a part of your checklist, ensuring that you're complying with your inspections.
Very good. Well, I think that definitely helps because there's really the safety component and then that regulatory compliance component. So how often do we need to perform this inspection, and when do we need to perform it, and how often?
So the STC's ICA, or instructions for continued airworthiness core document states that the system inspection should be performed at each 100 hours of aircraft service and each 12 calendar months. So it's very important that you're looking at that at a minimum. And a lot of what's a good idea also is anytime the aircraft's in the hangar, you're able to get a good look at the aircraft, ensure that there's nothing damaged or in-op bulbs, etc. But so it's every 100 hours and each 12 calendar months is the minimum. So.
Very good. And then why should every type of operator accomplish a conformity inspection?
So it comes back to your annual inspection. You don't want to be an operator, that's operating under any, operation that's not maintaining your system or maintaining your aircraft by not performing inspections at any criteria. So it is important to take a look at your aircraft. If it does have the STC, it's critical to take a look at this STC, the aircraft system or the lighting system, and then make sure it's maintained and matching the drawings.
Absolutely. Can you provide an example of how an operator would document the inspection?
Yep. So even like as a Part 91 operation, this is even how ASU does like a single line entry that states simply like we've completed all required airworthiness inspections of the installed equipment of the aircraft. So that's just when you're going through your STCs and you're complying with the inspection criteria of each STC in a single line entry that says we've complied with all required airworthiness inspections of installed equipment on the aircraft.
Great, and that's like some critical wording there also.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell me, Chris, what are some of the things that we're looking for during the conformity inspection?
Yeah, sure. So when you're performing a conformity inspection, it's important to remember that the best way of going about a conformity of the NVIS STC lighting system is to have the drawings printed off and in your hand with a highlighter and a pen also in your hand, ready to make any notes and tick mark off all of the equipment, make sure the drawings match the aircraft. But while you're performing that aircraft or a conformity inspection in the aircraft while sitting in there, it's also the best time to also be looking for things that have to do with the lighting system as well. So it could be also looking for bulbs that are burnt out or in-op. It could be looking at the filters, making sure that there's not any condensation that's built up behind them, and if there is, making a note of that on those STC drawings that are going to be on your lap. Looking for crazing or looking for cracked filters, looking for things that just aren't working like they're supposed to be. A lot of times operators down in coastal areas, they'll have a salt water or a condensation that'll build up behind the filters that ends up being like a light white or hazy film that essentially what it is it's salt buildup behind the filter. It's in between the filter and the display. Finding anything like that, and that's a pretty serious one also, because that salt can lead to pitting and damage of the display itself, as well as ruining the filter. So you're just going to want to be in the aircraft and looking for drawing errors and things that are not called out on the drawings that should be, or things that are called out on the drawings but not in the aircraft, and just any discrepancy that doesn't match between one and the other, but also looking for things that aren't right. So that's what's most important, and one of the things that, or some of the most important things to be looking for while you're in the aircraft performing a conformity inspection. So in short, it's a very good time to be finding problems with the lighting system.
So that sounds like there's some environmental factors that can put wear and tear on some of the materials, as well as more recently we've got a lot of touch screens in cockpits, so people are touching them over and over, and so that's an opportunity to look for wear and tear from from environmental factors as well as people factors.
Yeah, that's a good point. Functionality, making sure that the filter, even though a touch screen has a filter on it, ensuring that the touch screen capability of that piece of equipment is working like it's supposed to be. So yeah, good point.
And over time, a lot of small things can add up to a deficiency or an operational limitation. So we probably don't want that as well. So it's a good opportunity to identify those before they turn into something bigger.
Yeah, I'd like to even touch on that, Sarah. Sorry to jump in there, but I'd like to say that anytime there's bulbs burnt out in pieces of equipment, utility lights, pod lights, etc., it might not even be noticed right away or reported by the pilots who are operating the aircraft. But when you're sitting in there and you're performing this conformity inspection and you're looking for things that are not right, you might be finding something that's just one thing that's not working correctly. But imagine if it's two or three or more. And what happens is this lighting stuff it's accumulative. So as you've got one or more than one that start burning out, or you're it's not being fixed yet, they do accumulate, and then they will affect the overall capability of the what the NVIS lighting system is supposed to do for the pilot. So it is important to look for anything that's not working correctly.
Yeah, that's a good opportunity to identify it and then also correct it. So why don't we talk about the critical steps of the inspection, what it actually entails?
Okay, good. So I've touched on this, but let's just go through step by step here. The first step in a conformity inspection, I'm going to make sure, number one, and very, very important and helpful, is to ensure that you're printing off in large sheet if you can. It's very helpful. It's much more helpful than the little 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, but 11 by 17 is how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to print off the latest and greatest revision of those drawings. So, and you can even call back to me if you're unsure that you're looking at the latest and greatest revision, but it's important to have the latest rev of the drawings. You can tell what the latest rev of the drawing is by looking at the top right-hand corner of the drawings, and what it'll list is the rev level, which is a letter designator. So it's either A or B or C, depending on how many times your drawings have been revised. And then next to that will be a number, which above, and if you look in that column above it, it should say ECO. And what that is how many ECOs have occurred on that drawing. So, and if you're unsure, if you're looking at the latest rev of the drawing, you can just simply call me or call someone here at ASU. We can help you determine if you're looking at the latest rev of the drawing, if you're unsure about it. Critical steps involve printing off those drawings, climbing in the seat of the of the cockpit and looking at the instrument panel and the overhead and center console, any other lighting that's in the aircraft, and with a highlighter and a pen, you're going to highlight off each piece of equipment by looking at the aircraft and comparing it to the drawings. Overall, you should end up with a completely highlighted drawing because everything that's called out on the drawing should be located somewhere within the aircraft, so typically in the cockpit. Any notes or discrepancies, anything that you're finding that's not correct on the drawings or plain old not depicted at all, you're going to want to use your pen. Red pen's the best option for the color. It just seems to help the best, but this is where you want to write down or depict in anything that's missing on the drawings. Just hand write it in, and then so that's pretty much it. When you're done with your conformity inspection, of course I would recommend powering on the aircraft and looking for anything that's in-op. Hazing on the filters, due to condensation or any kind of salt or anything like that, depending on where you're operating. You might end up with, salt behind the filters. But you're looking for anything that's not working correctly. And then you just go from there by whether you need an ECO or you need parts to order, and we can get into that next.
So what are some of the common issues that people find during the inspection process?
Sure. So some of the most common issues are items that are on the aircraft but not depicted on the drawings. So at some point in time after ASUs come out to perform our STC installation on the aircraft, a piece of equipment was either removed and replaced with another piece of equipment, or a switch of some sort, or something was installed in the aircraft with something that has lighting. So the most common things that we see are Vivasun or little small annunciator switches that are installed in the aircraft, mainly like the instrument panel or the center console, and then that switch isn't depicted anywhere on the drawings, and it may need to be it needs to be addressed on the drawings, whether it's an INVIS piece of equipment or not, but it may be something that's detrimental or accumulatively adding light to the overall cockpit or the environment of the cockpit for the pilot. So it should be addressed. Those items are definitely conformity discrepancies. If you find something that's on the aircraft but not depicted on the drawings, that would be those would be the most common things that we're finding.
And so what are the next steps to address something if they find something wrong?
Yep. So the first step would be, and this is a good point for me to provide the parts department at ASU to provide their direct line or their direct phone number. If there ever are parts that are needed during a conformity inspection, if it's found that you've got a piece of equipment and it's not filtered or it's not modified in some way, our direct line to our parts manager is 208-287-5398. You just give him a call and then let him know what aircraft you're working on, and by serial numbers, the most common way that we track, the data for each specific aircraft that that has our STC, and then they would go from there to, get you the filter or the part that you're in need of. But the other thing is that if you found discrepancies on the drawings, that would be what we call an ECO, where an engineering change order, where the drawings would need to be updated to match your aircraft. So I'll also provide here our ECO manager's direct line in the case that an ECO is needed, and his direct line is 208-287-5390. And there's also a link. This is going to be the most useful to you, is that if an ECO is needed, on our website, www.asu-nvg.com, which is ASU, which stands for Aviation Specialties Unlimited, dash like a minus sign NVG, like nightvision-goggle.com. You're going to go to the Aviation tab, and then go to the Aircraft Modifications tab. In there, you're going to find a tab for engineering change orders, and it gives a very descriptive description of what is entailed with an ECO and the entire process of that ECO.
Yeah, I think that's a great resource too, because you can see how the whole ECO process works, what you guys could provide. Images of your aircraft can be really helpful to get that process going, and that's really to help us update the drawings so that your most current version of drawings matches the actual aircraft. So we've got a process for that, and definitely that's a good resource. So thanks for sharing it.
Mm-hmm.
So can you share an example of an operator that found an issue during an inspection and corrected it?
Yeah, sure. So we do receive ECOs every day. This is where we feel here at ASU that we're doing our best to support the customers. So things change. Obviously, the aircraft are always being updated and new equipment's installed, removed, changed, etc. So every day we receive ECOs. An ECO that we received just today was it had to do with a piece of equipment that was being removed from the center console of this aircraft, and then a new piece of equipment, a different make and model, was being installed. It just so happened to be equipment that we have seen before in the past on that very STC, so there's no new parts to the STC being added or anything like that. But basically, it's an engineering change order, updating the drawings, and then at the end of that, there's a parts order that's required, that we're going to send a filter out for this piece of equipment. So, which we could also touch on the fact that, not every operator may feel comfortable installing the STC parts on their equipment. So some of them do entail bulbs or internal modification at times. So in those scenarios where the customer, if you're ever not wanting to install that part yourself, of course you can always send that piece of equipment in here to ASU, and we can also install those parts for you. So
yeah, that's a great point. Could you also talk a little bit about the how our drawings have advanced and some of the ways that our customers can ensure uptime for their aircraft?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked. So over the years, we've drastically worked to improve our drawing system. Our goal there is to help the customers be able to maintain their the NVIS lighting system on their own, and by saying that, what we've done is we've incorporated modification specifications to our drawings. So what we used to do, let me just touch on how they used to look, is our drawings would list out flag notes on each equipment's call out. So we would have a line that would point at a piece of equipment, and then that call out would lead you to a table, which is the equipment table, and then also it would call out the specific part, the NVIS part that was associated with that equipment, and then on top of that it would list out a flag note, which was the instructions. It was very, it was not vague, but it wasn't all-encompassing with photos and step by step on how to modify that piece of equipment. So the improvements that we've made here is that our drawings now have been calling out an entire column on the equipment list for each specific piece of equipment. There's a column for mod spec, and what that mod spec is a set of instructions for how to modify each piece of equipment to be NVIS compatible with the parts that are called out. So therefore, what we're trying to do is help the operator be able to modify the equipment by ASU sending the parts out to the operator, and then they can install those parts themselves, and which that greatly reduces the time that the piece of equipment is out of the aircraft or not operating in an NVIS aircraft. So
yeah, that definitely gives our customers a lot of options. If they're capable of modifying the part themselves, we call out the tools and the step-by-step process to do that. And on the other side of that, if an organization isn't prepared to do that, we've got that in-house capability with real quick turnaround. So I think that really does help our customers keep their uptime. And so thank you so much. We've covered a lot today. Is there some final parting words that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, sure. So just to reemphasize the importance of getting into the aircraft with a set of drawings. Just if you have trouble locating those drawings, I didn't mention this yet, but I would say if you have a hard time finding your ICA appendix drawings or the specific drawings for your aircraft, I'll give you my phone number, my direct line here one more time, just so that if you do have that question or you need to locate those, just please give me a call, and then I can help you locate those. So my direct line here at ASU is 208-287-5393. And if you give me a call, and you need to find those drawings, but the most important thing I wanted to say is sit in the aircraft and look through your aircraft, power on the aircraft, look for anything that's not working correctly, and look for any discrepancies on your drawings. So,
well, thank you so much. I think those are some great parting words, is to get people, in their aircraft, get the documentation in front of them, and really get some hands-on to make sure that their aircraft is in conformity and that everything's operational. And so we'd like to thank you, Chris. Thank you for your time today. Much appreciated. And your expertise. We've got a video online that can take you step by step through this conformity process. It's a good resource, so you can find that at asu-nvg.com/conformity, CONFORMITY. And you can also come see us. We'll be exhibiting at APSCon, which is the Aerial Public Safety Conference that's happening in Louisville later in July. We're going to be in booth 709. You can come take a look at some goggles, talk with our experts, and address any questions there. And again, give Chris a call if you need anything conformity related, and we're happy to have you. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thank you.
As we wrap up, I'd like to thank our guest for being on the show, and thank our valued listeners for joining us for the ASU Aviation Conversation audio series and advancing the understanding of aerial NVG operations through discussion and shared learning. You can find this and other episodes of the ASU Aviation Conversations audio series on our website at asu-nvg.com/conversation. You can also subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, or any other podcast streaming source to stay up on the latest episodes. We hope you'll join us again, and until then, let's all keep working for a safer tomorrow.